Hey, welcome back to Beginning Java Programming with Segfault. Today we're going to talk about primitives and references and variables and arrays. We'll get a little more into it than we did before, and I kind of want to show you some examples, give you some ideas of how to use different variables in different ways. First, I'm going to start with talking about instantiating variables. You'll see here something that we haven't really encountered. You'll see these two brackets and you wonder, well, what's that? That's called an array. Basically, it's a storage device of multiple variables in one container. So, for example, you'll see the string. So it's an array of strings called with the name reserved words, right? And these are all the words in that storage container. So string 0, if you did reserve word 0, that would be boolean. Reserve words 1 would be byte. And those are different, and that's how you access those different array members. We'll get more into that in a few minutes. But this is how you instantiate an array of strings with the double quotes and the commas in between each one. And also, you'll notice these words that are in the reserve words. You'll wonder, what's reserve words? What do you mean by that? And what reserve words are? These are all words that you can't use for naming variables. Like, for example, if you said a string boolean, that would confuse the compiler. It would say, I don't know, do you want a boolean or a string? Because a boolean is a type. It's like a class. And basically, all these variables and stuff you've been using are classes that have already been written by the people and are already imported into the basic Java library. And we'll get more into libraries and stuff a little bit later. But these are all static words. These are all words, not static, excuse me. These are all reserved words that you can't use to name variables. Otherwise, there's 3 rules for naming variables that always apply. It must start with a character, or an underscore, or a dollar sign. After the first character, you can use numbers. So like rule 1, for example. And then the third rule is it can be anyone except for one of the reserved words. There's actually 50 reserved words, and there's a lot of them. I don't want to type them out, but you can just Google Java reserved words and get a whole list of them. The ones that you have here are all the main ones most people encounter. Obviously, all the variable types are reserved words, and there's public, private, protected. Some of the other words we've seen, class, for example, are words you can't use. Other than that, anything's game, as long as you follow these 3 rules and you can use whatever you want. So here we're going to instantiate an array of strings. This is how you instantiate an empty array of strings. So all these words here are empty. There's nothing in them, but there's 30 of them. And how you access the different ones is you put a bracket in front of the name of the word, for example, and it starts at 0. It always starts at 0, and there are 30 containers. So 0 is the first one, and 29 is the last one. And that may seem kind of confusing. And if you ever take a computer architecture class or system design, you'll get more into why it starts with 0. And if you actually want to know, I guess I could make a video sometime. Just post a comment saying you want to know, and I'll make a video about it. But just know for now that's how it works. So see, word 0 I instantiated as hello world, and word 29 instantiated as this is the last spot in the array. And we're going to build a for loop, which will go through all these words and assign the word 0 to all the words. So it goes 0, it assigns 0 to 0, 1, 0 to 1 is assigned, and then it's going to print them out, and also print the one in front of it. And you'll see when it does this that the ones in front of it haven't been instantiated yet, so they're going to be null. So let's go ahead and run that and pull up our console here. Oop, missed it. You'll see it prints out hello world, but the next one prints out hasn't been instantiated yet. But now it gets instantiated and shown, and the next one's null. You'll see all the way down until you get to this is the last spot in the array, which has already been instantiated before it gets to that spot. So that's why it actually prints something out. And also I called this member length, which gives the size, how this number here, right here, of this array. So you get the array size, and you can do a for loop to run through arrays and print them out, or do whatever you're going to do, modify them, concatenate them, whatever you're going to do. So that's string arrays, and you can use this with any other type, even your own classes. It's like, for example, in the last video we talked about trucks. You can even have an array of 30 trucks. You'd say truck, trucks equals new truck 30 or whatever, how many ever size you wanted, and it would create an array of 30 trucks, and you can just access them. You could save, that sort of thing. Anyway, let's get rid of that. And also, there are two main things you need to know about arrays and variables, and that is all variable types are actually classes that have already been written. So earlier, the truck class you wrote, well, somebody wrote the string class, somebody else wrote the integer class, and they're just libraries that have been imported in to Java, basic libraries. You get a set of basic libraries that you can use, and you can also create your own classes and import other libraries that other people have already written. So like, for example, if you wanted to have a square root function, well, Java doesn't have a square root function, but there's already a library written that does that for you, and I'll talk about that later, how to import libraries so you can use other people's functions and other people's classes and whatever else other people have written. And you can actually submit your own classes and stuff too if you want. And all these classes have methods just like classes you wrote in the last video, and you can access their methods the same way as you access the methods from your own classes. You can't access a variable or class type to different. You can't assign, a variable or class type to a different type unless you cast it to that type. And some types cannot be cast. And if you want to do this, you'll probably have to look it up or test it, because there's different ones. Like, for example, you couldn't take a string and cast it to a truck, because the compiler doesn't know what that is. It's a written class. There's no method in the truck class that tells the compiler what to do to cast it into a string. You can actually write that method, so then when you do the cast, it will actually do it. But something you have to write yourself. And we can get more into doing things like operator overloading, that sort of thing, which casting is something that you deal with overloading. So an example would be, say, string test equals new string, and we'll give it a value. Say hello. Alright, well, actually we'll do this. 1. Okay, it's 1. You'd say integer 1 is equal to test. Well, it's going to bark at you and say, hey, I don't know how to cast this. It says type mismatch, cannot convert string to integer. I don't know how to do that. But you can force cast it by doing int. And that is how you cast it. Well, the thing is it doesn't know how to do that, so it's not going to do it. But that is one way how to cast. And if you have two classes that are similar, you can cast these ways. There's actually an integer function to cast. I think it's a integer dot parse int from a string. Yeah, there we go. And then this is a function that's already written to the integer class that allows you to parse a string to an integer, and that would be a way you could do it. So you see, this is an integer class that has a function that already does that. One way to do it, and you can also write your own casting. And some casts actually do work. Like one I showed you obviously doesn't work because it doesn't know what to do there, but that one it does know. An example of one it does know how to do would be like float test2 equals, let's say 3.4f float, right? Say 1 is equal to test2. It's going to say, well, I don't know how to do that. How do you do that? So you just already cast it. You say, well, actually, I want to cast it to an int. Oh, there we go. And it knows how to cast these types because it knows how to cast these types already. It's already written into the integer class how to cast that. You don't have to use another library to do it. So there's some examples of variables, primitives, references, these sort of things. And if you have any questions, please post on my comment block or email me. And if you like this video or have any comments, please post them. And thank you for watching, and have a good night.